In the upscale residential area of Cambridge, Massachusetts, the early summer sunlight gently illuminated the white Victorian houses. Among them stood an elegant mansion along Mount Auburn Street. A well-maintained lawn stretched across the yard, and colorful hydrangeas bloomed by the entrance. Neighborhood children ran past the garage where a BMW and a Volvo were parked side by side. April Wilson gazed out the large window of her home office, letting out a deep sigh. Her Brooks Brothers dress draped gently over her very pregnant belly. Real estate appraisal reports were piled high on her desk, and a legal seafoods takeout bag testified to her rushed lunch break. 5 years into her career as an independent real estate appraiser, April had earned a solid reputation in Cambridge's property market. She commanded an annual income exceeding $100,000 and enjoyed the trust of her clients. However, her husband Michael controlled everything. It's only natural for the man to manage household finances, Michael had insisted since their wedding day. Cutting a dashing figure in his Hugo Boss suit and theory leather shoes, he worked as a senior advisor at a major investment firm. With his annual income of $150,000, he maintained complete control over not only his earnings, but April's income as well. April couldn't even see her own credit card statements. Though the card was in her name, she didn't know her credit limit. She wasn't allowed to receive the monthly statements before her husband opened them. Even when meeting colleagues at Tat Bakery and Cafe, she had to say, "I'll check with my husband before making payments." How many times had she endured such humiliation? Lately, Michael had been acting strangely. His business trips became more frequent, and his communication with family felt unnaturally persistent. Bills from luxury hotels, receipts from unknown restaurants, all dismissed with the explanation of business entertainment. 2 weeks ago, April made her decision. In the dead of night, while her husband was in deep sleep, she secretly installed a GPS app on his smartphone. She set her own password, taking extreme care not to be discovered. Her parents lived in a quiet residential area of Belmont. Her father George, a former IT company executive, maintained an intimidating personality and still wielded influence in the industry while driving around in his Lexus RX. Her mother Patricia was a typical housewife, dutifully following her husband and making daily shopping trips to Nordstrom. Her sister Caitlin worked as a receptionist at a beauty clinic while aspiring to become a social media influencer. Their parents indulgently watched as she purchased one luxury brand bag and outfit after another to increase her follower count. Everything appeared peaceful. Everything seemed normal. But April's intuition had definitely sensed something. She had secretly begun collecting brochures for new condominiums around Porter Square. As the sun began to set, April quietly stood up. Tomorrow was her scheduled C-section. A private room at Mount Auburn Hospital had already been reserved. All preparations to welcome the new life were complete. Soft early summer sunlight streamed into the white hospital room. From the private room at Mount Auburn Hospital, one could see the Charles River flowing amid fresh greenery. Pink roses from April's colleagues filled a vase by the window, next to an elegant orchid sent by her business associates. 24 hours had passed since the C-section. The scent of disinfectant lingered in the room, and footsteps in the hallway seemed to belong to a distant world. "The baby's condition is stable," the nurse said kindly. Her name tag read Sarah on her white uniform. In the bassinet next to her, her newborn slept peacefully. The tiny hand occasionally moved, delicate fingers reaching for the sky. April watched quietly. The post-surgery pain was stronger than expected. The abdominal incision responded sharply to even slight movements. But what squeezed her heart even more was her husband's absence. Despite the delivery date being set 2 months in advance, Michael had flown to Chicago for an important business meeting. She could hear the nurses at their station quietly discussing her husband's absence. "Ma'am, there's a message from your husband," another nurse informed her with an apologetic expression. The Chicago meeting was running long. April nodded slightly and picked up her smartphone. Messages from Michael lined the screen. Such matter-of-fact text. Not a hint of emotion. What expression did her husband wear as he sent these messages? As April was about to reply, her smartphone rang. An unknown number. After hesitating, she pressed the answer button. "Mrs. Wilson, we deeply apologize for the disturbance. This is the security department of your credit card company." A composed female voice. Her spine froze. Even the sunlight streaming through the window suddenly felt cold. "Today, we've detected multiple high-value transactions at the Four Seasons Hotel in Maui, Hawaii. Spa treatments for $15,000, restaurant charges for $8,000, and boutique purchases for $9,000. The total has reached $32,000, and we're contacting you for security verification." April's fingertips trembled. The air in the hospital room seemed to freeze instantly. The heart monitor's beeping suddenly sounded too loud. "I'm currently in a hospital in Boston," she heard herself say, her voice sounding distant yet surprisingly calm. "As there may be fraudulent use of your card, we'll suspend it immediately." "A new card will." Interrupting that voice, her smartphone vibrated again. This time, a notification. April launched the GPS app she had secretly installed. She carefully adjusted the screen brightness to minimum, making sure no one could see. The blue dot on the screen pointed definitively to that location. Maui, Hawaii. Four Seasons Resort Maui. In a luxurious beach resort room, what was Michael thinking right now? Whose shoulders was he touching in that expensive spa? As if guided by fate, the next notification arrived. An Instagram update from her sister. The photo showed her husband drinking champagne with her parents and sister at a beachside restaurant, bathed in bright tropical sunlight. Her father in his white resort shirt, her mother in what looked like a new summer hat, her sister in a trendy dress, and Michael's elated expression. Everything became clear in that moment. Her parents' unnatural phone calls, her sister's sudden vacation, her husband's frequent business trips. All the dots connected into a single line. It was also the moment when the chains that had bound April's life snapped with an audible sound. Outside the window, an ambulance siren faded into the distance. Perhaps another turning point had arrived in someone else's life. She quietly set down her smartphone and gazed at her sleeping child. This tiny life showed a peaceful sleeping face, blissfully unaware of the world's ugliness. The newborn's cheeks carried a faint pink hue. "Mama will make everything right for your future, I promise." Her voice was purer and more resolute than ever before. The sunlight flowing into the white room gently illuminated her profile, as if blessing her determination. On the bedside table, her smartphone vibrated again. This time, a message from her lawyer. 2 weeks ago, she had already completed her initial consultation. That day, she had visited the law firm alone, using her husband's business trip as cover. Everything is prepared. We can begin whenever you're ready. April gently held her baby's tiny hand. The soft warmth strengthened her resolve. The pulse of life promised a certain future. 4 days later, morning sunlight streamed into the private room at Mount Auburn Hospital. April put her baby in the bassinet and turned on her laptop. A new spreadsheet titled Forensic Financial Investigation opened on the screen. "Ma'am, you're being discharged today. What time will your husband be picking you up?" Nurse Sarah inquired. "My husband is away on business. I've arranged for a taxi," April replied quietly but with unmistakable determination. Before leaving the hospital, she had made 3 important phone calls. One to the major law firm Morrison & Baker, another to an IT company specializing in digital forensics, and the last to the Economic Crime Unit of the Boston Police Department. The taxi headed not to her quiet Cambridge home, but to a service apartment near Porter Square, reserved under an alias a week ago. "Let's begin gathering concrete evidence." Attorney Jennifer Morrison opened her notebook in the luxury apartment. Harvard University's spires were visible through the window. Stacks of documents prepared by April covered the desk. First, the financial evidence. Following Jennifer's instructions, April operated her computer. Credit card statements. 3 years of transaction history lined the screen. "They've squandered over $1.5 million in these 3 years, Jennifer quietly stated. The digital forensics expert's equipment analyzed data one after another. GPS location history. Email backups. Bank transaction records. Social media post history. Look at this. This is my husband's hidden account." April's eyes gleamed coldly at the account information displayed on the screen. Cayman Islands offshore accounts. Swiss secret accounts. Cryptocurrency transaction records. And this is the decisive evidence. April presented messages exchanged between her husband and her family. Evidence piled up one after another. Records of regular money transfers to her parents. Flow of secret funds supporting her sister's extravagance. Evidence of conspiracy with her parents. Documents hiding investment failures. "Our legal preparations are complete," Jennifer continued explaining while reviewing the documents. First, claiming restitution for misappropriated funds. Next, settlement of income during the marriage. Then, securing custody. Property division will proceed favorably based on clear evidence. April nodded silently. The baby breathed softly in sleep. "Let's prepare for your new life." Jennifer pulled out new documents. A new condominium in Porter Square. The contract was already complete. 24-hour security. On-site childcare facilities. New bank accounts. Office reopening preparations. Childcare service arrangements. "There's one concerning matter," the digital forensics expert spoke up. "It seems they're planning to head to Las Vegas soon. They're planning large-scale gambling. The planned amount is $1 million. April's expression twisted for just a moment. It wasn't anger. It was something closer to pity. "Then let's begin everything tomorrow, as planned." Jennifer's voice echoed in the room. Outside the window, the evening sky was turning purple. The beginning of a new night. It was also the eve of their perfect plan. April rose quietly and touched her sleeping child's cheek. The warmth of this tiny life strengthened her resolve even further. Tomorrow, our new life begins. There was no hesitation in her eyes. The airport arrival lobby was filled with people waiting for returning families. Under the electronic board announcing the arrival of the flight from Hawaii, plainclothes airport police officers waited quietly. Michael Wilson wore a satisfied smile on his tanned face. He had just completed a comfortable first-class journey with his parents and sister. He carried several luxury brand shopping bags, and a new watch gleamed on his wrist. It was a wonderful vacation, Patricia said, her new sunglasses sparkling. Next time, perhaps Monaco. Caitlin's words were interrupted by a sudden event. Two police officers approached quietly. The airport lobby's bustle seemed to fade away in an instant. Meanwhile, at a luxury office building in downtown Boston, an emergency meeting of the HR department was being held at the investment firm. These are the evidence documents submitted by Mrs. Wilson. The department had opened a thick file. Misappropriation of client funds. Illegal investment activities. Family-wide financial fraud. Evidence flashed across the conference room screen one after another. Records of unauthorized transfers from client accounts. Fund transfers to offshore accounts. Forged investment reports. Mr. Wilson is immediately suspended, the CEO's voice rang cold. In the upscale residential area of Belmont, a foreclosure notice was posted on the Browns' front door. Neighbors watched with curious eyes. What is the meaning of this? George Brown's roar echoed through the quiet neighborhood. Notifications from banks kept arriving on smartphones. Account freeze notices. Credit card suspensions. Home loan acceleration. Investment account trading suspensions. Caitlin stared at her own smartphone, frozen. Comments flooded her social media accounts. She had already received a termination notice from the beauty clinic. In the police interrogation room, Michael began to understand everything. The lawyer's explanation drove the point home. Mrs. Wilson has assembled perfect evidence. Restitution of misappropriated funds. Settlement of marital assets. Compensation. Child support. Property division. All legal procedures have already begun. And the final blow. Your investment advisor license will likely be revoked. In a new luxury condominium in Porter Square, on the top floor corner unit, April quietly opened her laptop. The baby slept peacefully in a custom crib. Breaking news flowed across the screen. The phone rang. It was Jennifer, her lawyer. Everything is proceeding as planned. The police investigation is intensifying, and the Financial Services Agency has begun their inquiry. The media has picked up the story. His company is considering damages claims. April nodded silently. Next door, preparations for her new real estate office were steadily progressing. Renovation work would be completed next week. Employee recruitment was going well. Several inquiries from new clients had already arrived. The security guard approached respectfully. There are visitors requesting to see you. April checked the visitors through the monitor. It was her parents. They looked as if they had aged years in just a week. Please turn them away. Her voice was quiet but firm. At dusk, the Boston skyline stretched out before the high-rise condominium windows. The sunset reflecting on the Charles River seemed to herald the beginning of a new era. April spoke softly to her sleeping child. As promised, Mama has made everything right. From now on, we'll walk our new path in life, bound by no one. The condominium intercom chimed. Dinner delivery had arrived. A lobster dinner from Legal Seafoods. A small luxury to celebrate a new contract with a client. She had stepped from a life controlled by others to one where she chose her own path. The sunset sinking into the Charles River quietly blessed her new future. Santa Barbara, California. The warm winter sunshine embraced the Spanish colonial-style building. On a corner facing State Street, a sophisticated sign reading "Wilson Real Estate Consulting" gleamed. Inside the glass-walled office, over a dozen staff members bustled about. April gazed at the street's activity from her spacious corner office. A latest model MacBook Pro sat on her desk. Her new real estate appraiser's license for California hung on the wall. A year had passed since her fresh start on the West Coast. President Wilson, the San Francisco property assessment is complete, a poised female staff member entered with a thick file. Thank you. The negotiations with the Silicon Valley tech companies seem to be going well too. April smiled as she reviewed the file. The company's performance was steadily rising. Their reputation in the West Coast real estate market was definitely growing. They had earned particular trust in tech company office appraisals. Mama, I'm hungry. A sweet voice rang out between work tasks. A soundproof glass-enclosed kids' space occupied one corner of the office. It's lunchtime already, isn't it? April gently stroked her growing daughter's cheek. A walk down State Street would take them to their favorite organic cafe. Meanwhile, news from Boston seemed like events from another world. Michael Wilson. Her ex-husband had completely lost his investment advisor license and was now washing dishes at a small motel on the outskirts of Las Vegas, Nevada. Cut off from former colleagues, he struggled under millions in debt. Her parents had to give up their luxury home in Belmont and now lived modestly in a rural New Hampshire town. Her father George's dignity had vanished, and their retirement funds were nearly depleted. Her mother Patricia had started part-time work at a local supermarket. Her sister Caitlin had fallen into an even more miserable situation. Her social media followers vanished overnight. Her plastic surgery debts snowballed, and she made repeated visits to mental health clinics. She scraped by working night shifts at a convenience store in a rural Arizona town. Mrs. Wilson, we have a new investment proposal. A representative from a major investment fund visited April's office. Now she was the one making investment decisions. I'll consider it carefully. Her words carried definite weight. At her home in the Santa Barbara Hills, Mediterranean architecture gleamed in the California sunlight. Her daughter played in the pool. How about dinner with your friends tonight? April's suggestion made her daughter's eyes sparkle. Nearby friends, fellow single mothers. They had built a new community, supporting each other. A single photograph hung on her study wall. A quiet moment of mother and child captured in the hospital room right after birth. Her determination that day had created today's happiness. "Mrs. Wilson, your work is truly remarkable," exclaimed a reporter from a local business magazine. "What I want to convey is the importance of financial independence. Especially how crucial it is for women to have the strength to make their own life choices." Her words resonated with many readers. The article generated significant response, and speaking requests started pouring in. "Hey," April said at dusk, holding her daughter on her lap as they watched the sun set into the Pacific. "Remember what Mama promised? That we would forge our new life with our own strength, without letting anyone stand in our way." Her daughter nodded with an innocent smile. That expression reflected their bright future. A gentle evening breeze began to blow through Santa Barbara, as if announcing the arrival of a new season. On April's desk lay a new proposal. Women's Financial Independence Program? Her new project to support women seeking economic independence. The sound of Pacific waves could be heard in the distance, as if quietly watching over the beginning of her new story.